A warm welcome. I am Jolan Wuyts. I work at Europeana as a collections editor, and I will be your master of ceremonies for today. So at this policy forum, under the auspices of the presidency of Poland, we have some really special guests with us today who I want to acknowledge first. So we're very honored to have Undersecretary Marta Cienkowska of the Polish Ministry of Cultural and National Heritage address the forum today. Thank you so much. We also have a pleasure of having Rehana Schwinninger-Ladak, who is maybe still queuing in front. She's the head of unit and deputy director of DG Connect. We also have online the British Library Chief Librarian Liz Jolly, who will join us for a session. We also have CED, CHE expert group members here in the room and also online. So everyone else joining us online, thank you so much for being here. We're also very pleased to have colleagues from Polish institutions from the forum today, Poland, and other institutions from across the country. And finally, of course, leadership from the Europeana Foundation, the Network Association, and the Europeana Aggregators Forum. A warm welcome to you all. What a list of people. So today, the title of today's policy forum is Preserving Cultural Heritage, Protecting at-Risk Heritage and Enhancing Cybersecurity. Sounds very serious, and there are some very serious topics in it, really. In this forum, we really want to focus on sharing knowledge and collaboration, because this is very important to build capacity around protecting the digital heritage that we all hold so dear. This heritage is at risk, and we need to foster security on multiple levels, including cybersecurity, to do so. Security doesn't necessarily mean, however, closing off, becoming walled and insular. We want to talk about these topics in the spirit of collaboration, of mutual understanding, to get to more social cohesion, more intercultural dialogue, and building bridges. So I hope that is the spirit that we can talk into today. We want to do more than just talk, though. We want to transform the discussions today into a clear call to action, which will be created based on the outcomes of our discussions, and will be shared with all of you after the conference. So please listen and contribute to the discussions today, as they will feed into that call to action, and you will get a chance to contribute to that call to action later as well. Right, that was the introduction. Some housekeeping, as always, is needed. It's the title. Good. As with all of our events, we have a set of inclusive engagement guidelines to make sure that we all listen and speak with each other in the way that we would like to be heard. We really want to make sure that people are given space to give their opinions, to be courageous and brave in their speech, and to also feel like they can step up and mention when a line has been crossed or there is something to report if you feel like a line has been crossed. If this is the case, you can always talk to one of our Europeana staff members, or online we also have moderators in the chat to make sure that these engagement guidelines are kept to. Right. As we shared this morning as well, please talk to us on social media and other platforms. We have a few hashtags to make sure that you all find each other digitally as well as physically. And that is the end of my part. To really formally introduce us, I would love to welcome Karol Zgódka. He's Director of Department of Media and Creative Sectors of the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage, and also Verwayen. He's General Director of the Europeana Foundation. Let's give them a warm hand.
So lots have been already said, and we, I think, have been all welcomed a few times today. But I would also like to welcome all of you here as a representative of the Ministry of Culture and National Heritage, as one of the organizers on one hand, but also as one of Polish representatives in Commission Experts Group. So it's very good to see you all for the Policy Forum in Warsaw. I think it's for the first time here. So it's very good that I can welcome you together with Harry in this our our big event. Thank you, Madam Cienkowska and our colleagues from Commission, Rihanna, Katerina, for being here with us. It's very good to see you. I think we should not take too much time. And what I want to say is that issue which we will discuss on this meeting today is very crucial in this moment. And it very well connects with the main title of Polish presidency, which is Security Europe. We live in difficult times and we need to protect also our culture, also our heritage, also both physical and digital. So we need to enhance our work. We have to do much more, much quicker than we thought that we should. So this is the good day to discuss how should we enhance it, what should we do better.
Thank you, Karol. Just a few quick words from my side. Thank you, Marta Cienkowska, for joining us. I had the pleasure to meet you already in the Twinit campaign results last year. It was fantastic to have you there. I also saw you at the Cultural Compass meeting. We were just chatting, and I'm going to do what you did. I'm going to leave the notes aside. I'll keep it very short. I think for me, when we started preparing for this forum, we discussed, of course, with Karol and the team, what should be the topic. And very quickly we came to, protection, preservation, cybersecurity. And I must admit that to me, coming from where I come from, Europeana in the early 2000s, this is a completely new ballgame for us. And I think that realization only dawned on me when, Karol was explaining that these were, the centerpiece of the presidency. And, of course, I understood it, but it didn't really sink in properly until we, started developing the program and so forth. And yeah, I agree. It's a very, very important topic, something we're not very well versed in. I come from the age of tech optimism. We're thinking of technology as something cool that you could do great things with. And now we also need to make sure that it's not being hijacked and, taken against us. So I'm very, I would say excited is a big word when you talk about serious things like this, but I think it's a very important topic. And I'm very curious what will come out of the debates and to see what our call to action could really become, something that we can really implement properly in our sector very widely. So thank you very much for joining us, for all the speakers, and I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thanks both. Completely new ball game. I think that is a really good way to kind of set the scene here. To help me set the scene a bit more, she's been mentioned a few times, but now I can finally invite her up on stage. Please welcome the Undersecretary of State, Marta Cienkowska.
That's me. Hello, everyone. I'm really, really glad that we see each other today here. Oh, so many cameras. Hello. First of all, when we met with Harry like a year ago, and he mentioned, look, Marta, this is like your presidency in the European Union, in the European Council, maybe the next event of Europeana should be in Warsaw. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And yeah, after a year, we see each other in Warsaw, and I'm super glad about this. Today, I have lots of notes, because I really want to say lots of things that are important for me. And I really want to hear you all those words. Because I really think that the job that you are doing, all of you doing in this crucial times, difficult times for every one of us, are super important. Because we have to all realize that we are fighting not just to scan something and to have it in the digital version, but we are actually protecting a memory and the things that part of our culture that we really want to show the future generations. So, hello again. The idea of this forum, which is, for the call to action document that will follow, was born from the real pressing issues that we in Poland experienced firsthand, and which are increasingly shared across Europe. I don't have to mention the war in Ukraine, natural disasters, of course, and long-term consequences of climate change. Those all have highlighted just how fragile our societies and cultural heritage really is and can be in the face of disruption. They have also shown that how essential it is to strengthen our capacity for preparedness and collective response. And in Poland, we witnessed not also the devastating impact of the war on cultural heritage just across our border, but at the same time, I don't know if you all know, but in 2024, the large part of our countries were affected by flood. And these events have made it clear that building resilience must be a central element of how we think about culture and heritage in the 21st century. And in this context, in my opinion, the European Union Preparedness Strategy, published in March this year, offers a really important framework. Although it focuses on areas such as civil protection, infrastructure, and health, its key message, the need to strengthen the resilience across all sectors, is equally relevant to culture. Cultural institutions and heritage assets are part of our social fabric that must be protected. Europe must be ready not only to defend its borders, but also, just like I said at the beginning, the memory, Europe's identity, and its ability to pass this to the future generations. I don't even have to say that the most powerful tools we have, it's right now, it's digitization. It allows us to document, safeguard, and ensure the continuity of cultural heritage, even if it's physically at risk. Digitization captures the structures, textures, contexts in a level of detail that was imaginable just a few decades ago. But it also comes with its own set of challenges that we mentioned, including the need to protect digital heritage from manipulation and cyber attacks. So the long-term preservation requires sustained investment in infrastructure, standards, but in my opinion, above all, people. And this is why we need a new European framework for the protection of cultural heritage, one that puts stability, resilience, and partnership in its core. And in this regard, the European Common Data Space for Cultural Heritage is particularly promising. And it's not just a digital platform. It is a living network of experts, institutions, and cultural actors. And it offers knowledge, sharing, support, and training, which is empowering cultural institutions to build their digital capacity and respond more effectively to the new emerging risks. We are also seeing growing interest in establishing a central European repository for digital cultural heritage, a facility that would protect key digital assets beyond national borders. This idea, being developed by our colleagues from Estonia, would help preserve Europeans' cultural memory in times of peace and ensure its safety in times of crisis. And actually, we are looking forward to discuss it in more detail today. At the same time, we have to work on awareness about the importance of digitization. So, and actually its potential. So The great example of Twinit, which I saw last year, launched in 2023 by the European Commission, it was amazing, actually. It showed the results, the quality of 3D models were exceptional. So we are super proud to participate in this initiative. And actually, I'm super pleased to learn that there will be, or there was, a launch of the Twinit, the part 2. Today, that's great. So this initiative builds the momentum of the first edition and continues to inspire the great enthusiasm in our cultural sector, and they see it. Initiatives such as these are the building blocks to more coherent, to a more collaborative European approach to cultural heritage protection. They demonstrate that by investing in shared infrastructure, resilient digital systems, expert networks, and awareness raising, can be better prepared for future risks. And we can prepare it, we can prepare ourselves together by projects like this. In my opinion, preparedness is not just a technical concept. It is just a mindset. And it is a continuous commitment to anticipate challenges, adapt flexibly, and respond effectively. We must act now. I don't know what we are waiting for. And we must act now to ensure that Europe's cultural heritage can be protected and sustained for future generations. I'm super proud that we are talking about these projects and about these issues during our Polish presidency of the Council of the European Union. It means a great deal to us to contribute it not only through policy, but by helping to shape a truly forward-looking, also value-based European conversation on culture, resilience, and shared responsibility. But before I close, I would like to emphasize one more crucial dimension to our work, which is international scope. We cannot protect cultural heritage by working in isolation. In today's interconnected world, heritage is not a national treasure. It is a global legacy. And protecting it requires a global cooperation. We can draw inspiration from efforts around the world. The UNESCO Emergency Preparedness and Response Unit has supported countries affected by war or natural disasters, from Afghanistan to Syria and Ukraine, helping digitize, relocate, or protect museum collections under threat. In Japan, for example, following the devastating earthquake in 2011 and tsunami, authorities established a network for cultural heritage risk management, uniting museums, universities, emergency services, and communities in an integrated response model that continues to serve as a reference today. In Latin America, the Red de Patrimonio en Riesgo, I don't know if I say it correctly, connects institutions across countries to protect archives and collections threatened by political instability and climate-related disasters, often through creating secure digital copies. And those are the examples that remind us international cooperation is not, and it shouldn't be, a strategy. It is a necessity. And this is not only about protecting objects, this is about protecting stories, identities, This is about protecting human connections and the future that it helps us imagine. So gatherings like today's forum reminds us what is possible when we come together. And with openness, with ambition, and actually with care, because we all care. Like we are sitting here together, we all care about our culture and our cultural heritage. Together we can ensure that the legacy we inherit is not lost to crisis, but actually renewed by resilience. And that what we pass on to future generation is not just preserved, but still alive. So thank you all of you for being here. Thank you that you actually came to Warsaw. I hope that this meeting will give you some new ideas, maybe bolder thinking, maybe some inspirations that you can share with the person sitting next to you. I'm really glad that you are all here in the city that was destroyed and rebuilt, and maybe in the future can. We will see. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Undersecretary of State Cienkowska, for those, honestly, even if it's about a serious issue, quite heartwarming, at least to me, words. I really, really loved this presentation. To continue on talking about keeping our digital assets safe and secure in this digital world, I would like to welcome to the stage Valentine Charles, who is Director of Data at Europeana Foundation, and Corinne Szteinsznaider, who is manager of Michael Cultural Association, to give us a state of play of cybersecurity in the data space. Welcome.
Thank you all. It's really nice to see you all here this afternoon. Thank you, and the Secretary of State, Marta, for all these kind words. I think it gives us a sense of urgency, but also hope in a way, and a feeling like we want to act. So it gives a lot of energy. So thank you. Today, yeah, what we wanted to do with Corinne was to give you a bit of a tour d'horizon on what we think are the important areas we need to consider when talking about cybersecurity, which is one of the main topics that keeps us together today. The data space for cultural heritage, you have heard a lot about it this morning. So the Europeana Foundation, the Europeana Aggregators Forum, together with the Network Association, we are operating the data space for cultural heritage. And our role is really to democratize access to cultural heritage data. That's why we are here for. At the moment, in terms of the current status, the data space provide access to more than 60 million items, cultural heritage items, and 75% of it is reusable, which means that all this data is data that we need to keep secure, and at the same time is data that we need to continue to exchange with different actors, and we also want people to use them. So when it comes to cybersecurity, what are the different areas we think we should keep in mind and continue to explore and define strategies for?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for the invitation. So first point, what is cybersecurity? In general, it refers to technologies, practices, and policies to prevent cyber attacks or mitigate their impact. And cyber attacks are threats that can have diverse degree of severity, ranging from excessive use or abuse or malicious attacks, leading to some destruction of data. They have the power to disrupt, damage, or destroy memories, identities, but also organizations or infrastructures. Concerns about cybersecurity have exploded in recent years in proportion to the ever-increasing number and scale of cyber attacks. One of the first European texts to impose a general cybersecurity obligation is the European regulation GRDP, which requires any data controller to put in place security measures proportional to the estimate risks. Other European regulations have been developed, also directives specified to certain sectors, and strengthen the cybersecurity obligations, such as the Network and Information Security or the Cybersecurity Act. The legislation is leading for a development of cybersecurity obligations for entities handling data, either of data providers or reusers. And in the context of the data space for cultural heritage, of course, cybersecurity has to be understood in this vision and comply, of course, to the European regulation, but it's also to be understood in its broad vision, not only a technical topic, but it's also a guarantee of safe place for cultural heritage in its diversity.
So the first point to take into account, so as the amount of digital data grows, the first thing we need to care for is our repositories, which is where we store and where we preserve data. The strategies here to adopt needs to be a bit dual, because preserving or storing data will be different depending on whether you want to provide access to this data on a daily basis, because they are feeding services that are used by many users across Europe, for example, or whether you really want to store the data for preservation purpose, and therefore they need to be accessed a bit less often. So the strategies for this will be different. As we have seen this morning, the data space is built based on the Europeana experience, and the way we developed the repository is in a very centralized way, where at the moment exchanging data means that data is still copied from the cultural heritage institution to aggregators to coming to Europeana and the data space. So on one hand, you could say, with this strategy, we are built in a centralized way, and whether the centralized place disappear, at least you can always think, oh, the data is stored at source, so it's quite safe. So on one hand, you could think about this in this way. But as we are moving to the data space, one of the principles of the data space is that we should move towards more decentralized infrastructure. So what does it mean in this context? Decentralized infrastructure means that on one hand, it allows more sovereignty of cultural heritage institutions over their data, but on the other hand, it also brings more responsibility on the cultural heritage institutions, since data are really managed and served at source. So in a way, could we argue that decentralization might make cultural heritage institutions more vulnerable in this context? And therefore, if we are really moving towards decentralized infrastructure, what should be the role of the data space in serving as an intermediary to also protect cultural heritage institution and enable cultural heritage institution to have this sovereignty over their data?
So which principles we want to highlight and what are the challenges for the data space? So as Valentina said, democratizing the access, but also sharing data is important to continue as much as possible, and in the perspective of the cultural rights with an inclusive understanding. So the reuse of data is important from different topics and application and for artificial intelligence. So some principles and standards the sector has established, such as the FAIR and the CARE principles, are more than ever important in the context of the data space for cultural heritage. And this is why we need to have very strong and robust protection against potential abuse and reuse and malversation, let's say, against the content. So the Europeana partners aggregate a lot of objects of data from diverse institutions. And as you said previously, it's a broad and complex attack surface. So we must secure all the layers of interaction, not only the data space itself. So what are the challenges? protecting against cyber attacks on weaker links. Smaller institutions may have fewer resources for cybersecurity, ensuring secure interoperability between systems and between also other platforms or clouds or whatever, applying common cybersecurity standards across diverse environments, and take care about authenticity and provenance of the shared data. We have also to learn from other sectors, experience from long time in cybersecurity, and develop cooperation with them. So, what are the main risks that we encounter? So, misinformation spreads at an alarming rate. We have to fight disinformation and cultural manipulations. Digital cultural heritage is more and more used in education, memory policies, digital storytelling. So it's a high potential target for disinformation campaigns. So we have to take care again. So the challenges are detecting falsified or manipulated content entering the data space, promoting media literacy and digital provenance and traceability awareness among users. So as you can imagine, it comes also with a lot of awareness and capacity building activities. Another element is the relation with cybersecurity and this time of rising polarization and conflict in the world. And culture is more necessary than ever as a space for defending democracy and human values of inclusion, sustainability and unity, and reinforcing the democracy and preparing the resilience. And this is why more than ever, the data space for cultural heritage is really very, very important. In the digital age, cultural heritage found refuge in DCH, but with development of technologies, DCH can face threats as well in context of conflicts or authoritarian regimes. So cultural heritage can be envisaged as the strategic target, and we will see some examples later. So the data space for cultural heritage is the space for preserving the memory of the diversity of culture and communities, and in particular, minorities, and ensure a space for sharing and access data of all the cultures and communities. And this is why we care about our mission of culture as pillar for democracy and of being a safe and trustable space for the digital cultural heritage. What are the challenges? A robust system able to identify attack, aiming to erase some data and to aggregate manipulated data or reuse it in an abused way. And also context, the loss of context of metadata. If servers or databases are lost, metadata can be irretrievable.
So as it was said in introduction of this session, so addressing the question of cybersecurity should not block us in sharing the data and making sure that they can be accessed. So for this at Europeana, we are using mechanisms that support the real-time monitoring of our infrastructure. And what we have learned is then even with close monitoring, it's challenging to recognize the patterns. So when use become abuse, when you should raise the alert level on your infrastructure, when you see some weird behaviors, when should you decide to block access to your service to protect it, even if it's a moment for just a moment. So those are patterns that we need to study and understand together, and that's why capacity building on the topic is really important. A couple of examples that I would like to show you. So this is, for example, a graph that is taken from the use of our record API, and as you can see, suddenly there was an increase of traffic that was coming from a bot, and that traffic was quite intense. And in this case, it was damaging our system, and also the behavior was quite erratic. It was not clear why this user was hammering our system. So we decided to block it. But in comparison, this is another graph that shows the behavior of a user coming from Brazil that was harvesting data, again, using our record API. And we could see, okay, the traffic is high, but we could see what that data was requested. It was not the same data. It was quite regular. So on the contrary, in this case, we decided to let it go, and we made sure that our infrastructure could provide access to the data. So we have systems such as rate limiting, where, for example, we limit the amount of requests the user can make on our system so that the system can recuperate. But in this case, we didn't block it. We managed it. But as you can see, the patterns are quite similar, and it's quite hard to take a decision based on those patterns. So what those graphs show is that it's really important to monitor our system, to collect this kind of data, so that we are becoming better to recognize the pattern, anticipate potential attacks, and also respond in the correct manner. So that was it for us. So I hope this presentation gives you at least several elements that you can keep in your mind for the rest of the afternoon. Those are the points that we think are very important to consider when talking about cybersecurity. And I hope that the rest of the program will start giving you some concrete actions that can be taken to address those challenges. And also, I hope we will also hear from example of guidance on how to address those challenges. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You can stay. We actually have some time for questions if there are any in the room. Do we have any questions for Corinne and Sofie? And otherwise, I have questions that abound. Great. I will get you a microphone. There you go.
I was recently in a similar session on cybersecurity, but then for public data, political data, administrative data. And they made a very, for me, very good division between threats that come from inside and threats that comes from outside, and threats that are by accident and on purpose. So I think maybe you try to address it, but I think one of the biggest risks is bad behavior within the institutions themselves, right? Not having a clear view of what is the latest version, different connections between metadata. Do you also see that as something to tackle?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think so. Indeed, managing your house is quite important in this case. I would not necessarily put this under the topic of cybersecurity, but it's true that potential risks are starting from inside, where indeed, if you are not, if you forget about upgrading a part of your infrastructure, that might cause some dependencies to not work anymore, and indeed you are losing part of your system, and that can lead to loss of data, which I think is the highest risk in this case. So I think indeed, in terms of maintenance of the infrastructure, maintenance of repository, indeed there are also some good IT good practices that also maybe should be put next to recommendation on more managing attacks coming from outside. Yeah. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have another question? And if not, oh yes, there we go.
Thank you, Hannah Schreiber, UNESCO Chair on Tangible Heritage. I would like to ask about the issue of data grabbing in terms of the public repositories of cultural institutions. So can you share any good examples or guidelines related to any interaction with big tech companies who use cultural data to train their systems, and how cultural institutions can protect their data from this misuse and from this, what is called nowadays, digital colonization? Thank you.
I can reflect on what we are experiencing at the Europeana Foundation. So because our data are available for reuse, so in a way, the question on how this data is going to be used, we are not so much looking at this, but in terms of the behavior of those actors, we know that some of those agents, whether they are automatic bots or whether they are real users, but indeed interacting on behalf of a commercial entity, we can see some bad behavior. So they are the practice is that you indicate as a data provider, you can indicate how you would like your data to be grabbed. So there are some best practice that you can put in what we call a robot.txt file. So for example, at Europeana, we have such a file where we explicitly state the term of use of the data and how we would like to be harvested. But we know quite often those actors are not respecting this. And so what we are doing now is part of this monitoring I was mentioning, where when we see that there are clearly bad behaviors, then we are blocking the user. So we have mechanism where we are blocking single agents, more to show, this is disrespectful, non-ethical use. We can also sometimes contact directly those users. If they accept to behave in a better way, then they can again access the data. But yeah, that's the thing we can do, knowing that our record API is open to everyone. So as long as you have an API key, so that's why we can see who are those users and also track their behaviors.
In addition, the question you raised is directly one of the question of the discussions ongoing about the code of conduct, code of practice of the Artificial Intelligence Act. And it's an hot discussion, hot topic. And so the cultural sector is involved in this discussion, but I mean, it's a very strong discussion between some lobbies and with the cultural sector. And all the question with the opt-in, opt-out options, all those questions are really very important. So we will see also, I think, maybe Rana, you know more than me, if it's in July that we will have a first draft, the draft of the update of the code of conduct, but it will be very important to follow the discussion on it.
Great, thank you so much. These were very inspiring questions and amazing answers. I wouldn't know what to answer myself, so I think you've handled them very well. Let's have one last hand for Corinne and Valentine. An organization that was really faced with a lot of these challenges was the British Library in the UK, and as I'm sure all of us know, they suffered a cybersecurity attack, I think now already a year or two ago. Our next speaker, Liz Jolly, is with us, joining us online, and she will inform us of how these challenges can be turned into opportunities, into a more resilient infrastructure, and basically showing us how they went through this crisis and how they came out stronger than before. Let's put it that way. So the Chief Librarian, Liz Jolly, should be joining us on screen, hopefully. And I hope you can hear me, Liz.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome. The floor is yours, Liz. You can tell me when to advance your slides if you have them, and I will.
Oh, gosh, I do. Yes. Sorry, I'm having a bit of a brilliance. You've got my slide. You've got my slides there, haven't you? So if you'd like to put the first one up, that would be great. And thank you. I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about our cyber attack and learning lessons for the future. Sorry, brilliant. If we could, okay. So I think that's the, no, I've got a different set of slides.
Okay, right. I think the new slides are being uploaded as we speak, so there might be a little bit of a technical
issue. Okay, shall I'll carry on talking because I know we've only got a fixed amount of time. So, and sorry, I can't see the slides on screen either, so I'm not sure where you are. So British Library is the National Library for for the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. We have 170 million items, as it says on that slide there. That's better, thank you. And we are based on 2 sites. The site in London, which is the photograph, the 2 bottom photographs in that montage, at St Pancras, the sites that everyone knows about, which house 1/3 of our collections, mainly the most valuable items and the most frequently used. And beneath that piazza in the bottom left-hand photograph, there are 4 floors of basement store. However, 2/3 of our collection is stored in Yorkshire, a couple of 100 miles away, which in a lot of countries is no distance at all. In Britain, feels like a long way away. In Yorkshire, in the Yorkshire countryside, in an old Ministry of Defence site, with some very modern buildings, as you can see there. The photograph on the left is top left is of one of our robotic storage buildings. So 2/3 of our collection is there. The stats in the box I'm not going to read out, but that was the scale of the visits before our cyber attack. Next slide, please. So this is our mission. It's about making our intellectual heritage accessible to everyone. And while we see that research, what many people think about as academic research, is important, it is also important that we make the nation's cultural heritage available for inspiration, more generally, and for people to enjoy. So we don't question what people want to do with the information that we hold. Anyone over the age of 18 can have a reader pass, as long as they have photo ID and proof of address, and then they can engage directly with our collection. They may, for some of our more valuable items, they may need supervision in a room, but generally this is about people being able to interact directly with that collection. Next slide, please. And that is our reading room. That is our reading room now, actually, on a normal day. It's the humanities reading room. We are a grade 1 listed building, which in the UK is the highest grade of building conservation order. And so that means that our reading rooms are still very largely traditional, but they are very well used generally and very well loved by the people who use them. Next slide, please. So moving on to the attack itself. Excuse me. We had a ransomware attack which was claimed by a criminal group, so it wasn't a geopolitical group. And you'll see there that the point of entry was a server set up to support remote IT access after COVID. So you'll see that some of COVID has a very long impact on some of the things that have happened to us here. And you'll see the figures there around data being copied and exfiltrated, and mainly it was HR and IT data rather than collection data. And indeed, one of our cybersecurity specialists said that the next organisation that organisation infiltrated was a Catholic seminary. So it wasn't because we were a library, it was because we were a public building and they thought that we could pay a ransom. You'll see that other data was encrypted. The impact on our users was that everyone was locked out, and we had to take our online services were not available. So this group started by trying to extort money from us, then auctioned our data on the dark web, and then when we refused to engage, they published a lot of the data set there. The point, so this was for sale on the dark web. And having said that, so this meant that our digital services ceased for everyone, both for our users and anything digital that we needed to work with for our staff. However, on-site services did continue, so people could go into the reading rooms, could order some library items when we'd worked out a manual workaround, and we could help them with their work in the form of inquiries, referring them elsewhere, and so on, and helping in ways that we could do with knowledge that was available within the building. Next slide, please. So going forward, I'm going to talk about what happened. On the right, in the green boxes, are lessons that we learned from the cyber attack and that are in our report, lessons learned, that I'll show you later on in this presentation. So What we had to do was shut down immediately. We have incident protocols that are in use in the public sector in the UK around gold and silver and bronze level of leadership and management, and those are common across our public and indeed private sector. We needed to work immediately to begin to move to lessen the impact and to begin thinking about what we needed to do to recover. So there is a UK National Cybersecurity Centre, that's a police body. We also procured some independent experts. And our government-sponsored department, which is the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, they sponsor us, have cyber experts, and we called on them. So you'll see that there was a lot of stakeholder engagement. We also needed to work with staff immediately. And government policy is that we don't engage with perpetrators. So as an arm's length body of government, we were not allowed to engage in any way whatsoever with the perpetrators. And again, one of us for looking at those lessons, actually that immediate and open engagement and telling people what's happened, contacting expertise and bringing that to bear, and thinking about how you control and enable a flow of information to staff and external stakeholders. And I think the lesson here, if I know the lesson here for us, was that we had business continuity plans, but we didn't really have them for total outage. I don't think we'd anticipated that we could lose absolutely everything digital. And that impacted both on our initial reaction and on how we dealt with our recovery. And so please do, I would urge you to think about what happens if you have absolutely nothing left after a cyber attack. Next slide, please. So stakeholder management. We are librarians. I'm a career librarian. I'm a chartered librarian in the UK. And, you know, a librarian's instinct is to communicate as widely as possible. I have to say, though, that this was obviously restricted and we needed to make sure we had a balance between doing that and remembering that we were actually a crime scene. And so there are obviously restrictions around what you can say about a crime and at a crime scene. We needed to make sure that our staff had access to WhatsApp because this was the only way we could communicate with them. And we had all sorts of issues around people having names and photographs that they might have used in their private life, but which were not appropriate and not clear when we were trying to communicate in terms of the library and what was going on there. So we really had to focus on making sure that communication lines were clear. As one of 3 chief officers, there was a chief executive, a chief operating officer, and I'm the chief librarian. We had regular in-person briefings, and that meant doing an awful lot of travelling up to Yorkshire and back again to make sure that the people who worked 200 miles away were included in those in-person briefings. Sometimes there wasn't very much to say, but we needed to make sure that we were there to talk with them, to listen to them, and to feed that back into our approach to recovery. External messaging, you'll see there, social media. We got a basic website up fairly quickly, and our chief officer, our chief executive officer, Sir Rowley Keating, did regular blogs explaining where we are. We have a government board, they were a governing board, they were very closely involved and again did a lot of work with stakeholders in updating them. And the lessons there are around updating even when detail is hard to give, and updating even when you have nothing to say, being clear that there has been no process. And I think the thing that is missing from a lot of the literature around cyber attack is thinking about the well-being of our users and also our staff, because this feels sometimes, and I would say as an information professional, it does feel like a violation. So next slide, please. So there you are. That is some of the things we did to communicate with our users and with our community. You'll see that there's Twitter there. We had a blog, as I said, and our chief executive was interviewed by a paper, and that article was very widely read in the UK. Next slide, please. So our recovery was phased and is still phased. We have had a safety first approach to checking the integrity integrity of our data and our electronic collection. Our service restoration has been focused on helping most of our users access most of what they could pre-cyber. First of all, by workarounds through the end of the first quarter of last year. And then you'll see that that was our prioritization approach latterly. A lot of that was getting back what was had. Our old library services platform, Ex Libris Alpha, was very old and is not compatible with our new secure infrastructure. So we have had to upgrade that to Ex Libris Alma. That program started in December 2024, and we will go live with Ex Libris Alma in January 2026. And I'm sure you'll be aware that that is incredibly fast for a library services platform implementation. But that is what we have had to do to ensure that we have access to that catalogue. Okay, so next slide, please. So this is our report that we published in March 2024, again called Learning Lessons from the Cyber Attack, and the links are there. We are going to update that and do another iteration, but we have been praised by our peers and by our Information Commissioner in the UK for being so open about what happened, and actually for being clear that there were lessons to be learned and that we are learning them and implementing them. So next slide, please. So these are some of them. I'm not going to read those out to you, but those are the lessons around rebuilding our infrastructure, around segmentation of our networks, again, so that if part of it goes down, the whole network does not disappear. Again, one of the things that I don't think we've been as good at as we should be is around life cycle management of our infrastructure and our software. And we have also actually acknowledged that we were not spending enough in cybersecurity and in our infrastructure, and that has been a real lesson to us. But again, as I've said, it's not just that immediate uplift, that spending more, it's about ongoing life cycle management of what you have and making sure that you are always thinking ahead and always planning. Again, the people element is really important too. So taking that holistic overview of low-level risks, which might seem like nothing on their own, which when taken together are massive. Cyber training, and that's really important, but also understanding what the risk is at all levels, particularly at board level. Now, your board, you might feel are a long way away from what's actually going on, but they are your advocates, both for funding and for capacity, and for giving a steer to senior leaders on what is important. The other thing around learning lessons is that the training is not just about those processes, it is about behaviour and culture, and seeing cyber security as something that needs to be embedded from the very beginning and at the very roots of what we are all doing. And again, as I said at the beginning, planning for the worst, focusing on how you're going to recover, as well as how you're immediately going to mitigate the immediate impacts of what has happened. So on that security and doing your best to ensure that it doesn't happen, although experts now would say for most of us it's a case of when, not if. And so therefore focusing on a recovery that might mean you are recovering from absolutely nothing being available. Next slide, please. So for us, our final thoughts. Again, as I've said, I can't say that enough. Total allow for complete system failure. Make sure that you have a way of reaching all your colleagues via mobile or other means. Don't make sure that the only way you have of communicating with them is via your work systems, because that's just, might not be possible. I think the whole emotional issue around users and staff is one, again, that we could all do a lot more work on. I personally, as someone who've been involved in information management throughout my career, have been have been really felt violated, felt professional embarrassment, felt all those negative feelings, which in themselves are not helpful to recovering. But that shame thing is quite a big thing for me and for a lot of our colleagues.
I'm not sure if we lost Liz Jolly or if she's very brief in her closing words. Okay.
Thinking about that and enabling effective support is really important. Sorry, could you just go back again?
Sure, sorry.
Sorry, it's really important. So going on to planning ahead, engaging with whoever your national cybersecurity organisation is, and make sure that every department in your organisation has their own cyber resilience and recovery plan that is shared with other departments so that you have that holistic and strategic approach too. And I would say, you know, and I've said preparing and discussing, most importantly, rehearse and make sure you know what to actually do when the time comes. And thank you. That's the end of my talk. Thank you. And I hope you found that useful.
Thank you so much, Chief Librarian Liz Jolly. Some very salient lessons. What do you do if literally nothing is available anymore? And plan for things that aren't necessarily geopolitical in nature, but more general criminal attacks or breaches of your security as well. Our next session is very relevant when it comes to geopolitical crises and keeping data secure in the face of geopolitical issues. I am very excited to announce that we have Ukraine's Deputy Minister for Digital Development, Digital Transformation and Digitization for the Ministry of Culture and Information Policy joining us online, Anastasia Bondar, who will go in conversation with Sofie Taes. She is the chair of the Europeana Network Association, to discuss how to protect Ukraine's cultural heritage. Please welcome Sofie and Ms. Bondar.
Thank you very much for welcoming me. Let's hope we can extend that warm welcome to the Deputy Minister in a couple of seconds. Are we on the way, Shari? We are.
I'm perfectly hearing you, if you can hear me.
You are there. Welcome, Deputy Minister. So happy to be able to greet you. We are
Thank you very much.
we are trying to synchronize our image. Yes, here you are now, also a shiny presence in our conference room. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't have to introduce the Deputy Minister to you anymore. Thank you, Jolan, for taking that off the table. Dear Ms. Bondar, thank you so much for joining us from Kiev online. We, of course, wish to have you here in person, but I'm sure that future occasions will present themselves. We're particularly happy that with your experiences, with your expertise, you'll be able to share with us some insights and hopefully some valuable lessons and recommendations on how to indeed preserve and protect the cultural heritage that is so instrumental to our cultural identities. I will summarize in 2 words why I am standing here in front of you. I'm very proud to not only represent the Europeana Network Association as a chair, but also to chair the Europeana's working group in support of digital cultural heritage in Ukraine. For those of you who might be interested to join this working group, I might briefly touch upon a few things that we've been doing over the past 3 years already. This group was established shortly after the full-scale invasion. So Europeana first published a joint statement in support of Ukraine. A month later, that was March 2022, we established this working group because we felt that we didn't only want to speak or talk or write, we wanted to get hands-on. We wanted to try and get things done or help other people to getting things done. And these people, for instance, are the people of the amazing and inspiring Sucho project. So one of the founders, Sebastian Majstorovic, is also with us here during this conference. Very early on, we wanted to express our support and to lend a hand wherever we could. Same for the Sum for CH initiative that was focusing on Ukrainian monuments and heritage sites. I'm going to give a few more examples. The Laptops for Ukraine campaign, for instance, of European Commission was extended with a cultural branch where donators could pledge hardware, computer infrastructure actually, to cultural heritage institutions in Ukraine that were in need of support. And I'm happy here to plug my university, University of Leuven, that managed to ship there or donate and deliver on Christmas Eve last year over 50,000 euro worth of equipment. We've also supported the Hackathon initiative. This is a hackathon for and with Ukrainian heritage practitioners and tech wizards, in which they create innovative applications and ideas for cultural heritage promotion. We've supported it with Europeana for 2 years already, 2023, 2024, and I'm happy to say that last year's winners are represented here also at our conference. And then one final thing, we've been trying also to look at the longer term support of our colleagues in Ukraine by organizing different capacity building and networking activities, and by, of course, representing the working group during important events. And it's at one of these events, the UNESCO conference in Vilnius last year, that I had the pleasure to make the personal acquaintance of Deputy Minister Bondar. This would be my brief introduction as to the why of me standing here and the leeway into our conversation. But there, Ms. Bondar, before we start our Q&A, can I invite you to also maybe make an opening statement to the audience gathered here?
Thank you very much. Of course, first of all, let me say that it's a true honor to join this important conversation, even virtually. It's a feeling that I'm right now among those people who understand that culture is not a luxury in the times of crisis, but the foundation of resilience, identity, and independence. And this is very important for us. In order to prove actually those words, I would like just to come up with some simple numbers. Today we have 1,204th day of the full-scale invasion. And until today, as of the statistics of the end of last month, we have 1,480 damaged heritage sites, which leads us to a simple calculation that the renaissance of cultural heritage happen every single day of this full-scale invasion. For sure, Russia's full-scale invasion against Ukraine is not only a military invasion. We understand that it's also a cultural fight and kind of attempt to erase our memory, our identity, our history, and our culture. It's over 500,000 of evacuated museum items by now in Ukraine. It's over 1,700,000 of museum items which stay at the temporarily occupied territories. Museums at the occupied territories which have been used in order to produce the propaganda narratives. This all is going on right now, and this is what we are trying to fight with. But Ukraine is standing strong, and we are doing all our best to do all the efforts, including the digital, for sure, technologies and international solidarity and all the other efforts with our partners in civil society in order to stay strong and win this battle.
Thank you very much. And I just wanted to state that you can really count on our remaining commitment to stand shoulder to shoulder with you in these times, and looking forward to the future. Now, if I may, I want to immediately jump in with something that you just said. You said that the realization that the attack on Ukrainian cultural heritage was really trying to go to the core of the people, going to their cultural identity, erasing their memory, is something that you realized a bit later on. So my first question would be about the early days of the full-scale invasion, whether there was already a notion or an understanding of the fact that cultural heritage would be a key target for the aggressor to hit. Did you realize that straight away?
Well, actually, the full-scale invasion for the cultural sphere started on the second day, because exactly on the 25th of February of 2022, there was a direct missile attack over the museum of Maria Primachenko in Ivankova. And we all understood that this is going to be the cultural fight as well. We were aware of the situation as it all started with 2014, and we understood that the language issues, the literature issues, the looting of the museum items started long ago before that. But truly saying, and obviously nobody ever expected that this full-scale invasion is going to be that hard and it's going to go that close to the capital. That's why, for sure, we understood that most of people were not ready, especially those who live closer to center, not in front of the frontline territories, especially those who actually felt the attack towards their own house or apartments, especially those who lost their closest people. These all are about also human reactions. These all are about the psychological readiness, and this all is about the very exact mechanisms of the reaction towards the stress situations as well, which have to be maybe trained on a constant basis, which even I am not sure would guarantee 100 reaction and actions in the place. But thanks to our civil society, thanks to the reaction of all the cultural workers, thanks to you, our international partners, who really optimize their efforts in the closest dates after the full-scale invasion began, we understood that we are not alone there. And even though sometimes the governmental machine can be slower in its reactions, it is thanks to the organized group to support the cultural heritage preservation and help, which could react towards the situation which happened, which could later on start all the documentation, which completely differs from the documentation lists which are prepared by the governmental bodies according to the legislation. And for sure, it's about the enormous help towards the evacuation procedures.
Thank you very much. Can I ask, since those early days, so since we've been looking back to a couple of years ago, and the present state of your cultural heritage in, unfortunately, the ongoing war situation, did your priorities for responding as a government and as a sector, did they significantly change, or do you keep on seeing the same emergencies arising?
I guess it all depended on the situation and the field. Emergencies changed as the situation of the invasion changed. And for sure, we also had to adapt ourselves to all the challenges which happened due to the changes of the seasons, due to the heavy attacks over the infrastructure and the electricity and so on and so on. At the very beginning, we were lack of the packaging materials. And since, unfortunately, we did not have any unified electronic system for the registry of all the museum funds, if we talk about the museum items, we had to work hands-on with each particular case in every region, with every museums, working on the territory with those who could stay there and continue to try to evacuate, which also happened not to be ready, neither to have the materials to do the wrapping, nor to have the transport and security to relocate the museum items. So for sure, within time, we all learned. And within time, we all got used to adapting to these challenges, including the challenges which are changing all the time, because nobody ever expected that inside of the war and the missile attacks, we could have the natural disaster of Kakhovka Dam. And this is something what occurs, you know, on a day-to-day basis, and we really have to be very sharp and quick into our reactions on how we adapt. But clearly, for now, we are much more experienced. We already can understand that there are several different scenarios on what do we do and how we react. What packaging materials do we need? How do we need to repack? Because it's already the 4th year when the first items were packaged and relocated, and you understand that museum items, they have to be repacked at least once a year at least, and this also depends on the premises where they are kept, and obviously those premises have never ever been ready to accept that amount of museum items, which leads us to a very clear understanding that, first of all, it is so important to have the digital registries of everything what we keep in our museums, to understand on how can we plan the evacuation properly and which materials do we need to provide to evacuate for the particular museum. And secondly, it's about understanding of the need to have the places on where are we evacuating, because those places have never ever been planned, and this is something what on the governmental level we are going to implement.
Thank you very much. I was wondering, so you are learning lessons as the war endures. You are trying to be resilient, but also versatile and flexible to work with whatever happens at a certain point in time. How difficult is it at the same time to develop a strategy that looks at the midterm, maybe the longer term management of Ukrainian cultural heritage? Do you have the time and the opportunity to also take a few steps ahead apart from crisis response?
I guess that we don't have any other chance not to do that. And indeed, even I could join a few minutes before to listen to the previous speaker talking about some digital threats. And I was thinking that indeed we are living in such a situation when we have bombardments on one hand, and we are talking about the cyber war as well. And all our systems, the governmental systems, they are facing the cyber attacks. And these are both fields where we have to work and try to defend ourselves. For sure, we have thought of creating the digital registries even before the war. Unfortunately, we did not manage to finish that work, but we have never stopped doing this work. And just to mention on how Poland greatly supported us with the idea, because the representatives of the Ministry of Culture of Poland and Lithuania were the first to come to Kyiv. I guess it was the end of April 2022. The two ministers who understood and for sure visited all the deliberated territories and felt on what the results of the occupation and how culture in particular suffered, and immediately understood our concepts which we were describing them about creating the digital inventories on how we needed to have the support and the funding for sure. And later on, Poland have heavily supported the picture which you are showing right now all the time about the Museum Fund of Ukraine. This project was completely done with the support of the Ministry of Culture of Poland.
Amazing. Thank you so much for highlighting that. And indeed, I wanted to ask you about maybe some of the greatest successes that you've encountered in the digital since the war erupted, since the full-scale invasion, but also some of the challenges that you met. So you mentioned a couple of times these inventories, these registries. You also mentioned that this was an effort that was ongoing but not finalized. Where do you see the big barriers in working in the digital to protect and to safeguard cultural heritage?
I can hardly name any sphere where we did not have difficulties, actually. Well, first of all, it all starts with funding and the governmental support. That is clear, and this is where on the first stage we needed the support of our international partners, as we wanted to create the national systems. We wanted to create the national registers, which would put in one single joint electronic system all the information about either museum fund or e-monument, which you see right now for the immovable heritage, and which would allow us to work not only with the documentation of the damages of the full-scale invasion, but in general with the strategic approach towards understanding on how the government should manage all the cultural heritage sites or objects. So we started creating all those platforms, and by now this particular inventory which you're looking at for the immovable heritage has around 100,000 sites already included in it, and now all the regions are working in this system in order to confirm and detailize all the information about each and every heritage site. The same situation goes in with the museum fund, where we already have over 400 museums working in the system and trying to include and type in all the objects which they have. I guess we are today almost around 100,000 objects included, which is a great result. I mean, I'm saying it's a great result because you understand, we work inside of the war. We work inside of the situation where we lack computers. We work inside of the situation where we lack people, and so on, where we have to teach how to work in the system, not only create this system, which took us another 1.5 years, because we have worked with a group of representatives from the museums, for sure, with the ministry and our heritage department to understand on how this system has to be created. We have also contacted all our partners in Poland, in Estonia, in Lithuania, who have implemented similar systems and tried to collect all the best practices. Sometimes, you know, I like to say that those who stay at the last wagon of this train while doing something in this period of time, we can already have the opportunity to use all the experience all the countries were doing and passing by last 10 years and do it at once at the level of today's technology.
Thank you very much for this. I'm picking up at different points of our conversation that indeed international collaborations have been key in protecting and preserving the digital cultural heritage of Ukraine. And I was wondering, can you maybe point out which areas of collaboration that you found to be the most effective one, the most that made the most different for you, and also what it is that you would like us to look into for the coming period. So is there anything that we could focus our efforts on in terms of supporting Ukrainian digital heritage?
Well, first of all, for sure, it's about the physical aid. And as I have mentioned, the Ministry of Culture of Poland, the Ministry of Culture of Germany, of a lot of different countries in the world, in Europe, have helped us providing a lot of materials. And I would like to mention especially the great role of the civil society in all these procedures, because the way it could be very swiftly and rapidly organized in order to synchronize in between the museums, the smaller museums, the bigger museums, the museums which are in different territories, the museums which are hard to logistically reach. We have had groups of civil society organizations who joined in, who said that they are going to be in the place, they're going to collect the needs, they're going to adapt the needs briefly depending on the situation which changed, and the only thing which they needed is a support from our side, the ministerial, on a higher level, which for sure we were doing, because this is the level of interministerial, intergovernmental agreements, and we always highlighted the most important items where we had to work with our partners. What is important also, for sure, it's important when we had the support of our cultural workers who had to relocate to different countries in order they could be provided with the possibility to work, to practice, and to continue their job in case they had to relocate or evacuate from their home cities. Of course, it's about having possibilities to use the European projects and to participate for our cultural establishments, which could lead to the possibility, first of all, to have the Ukrainian cultural product shared together with our European partners. And this is, by the way, one of the key importance for us is to make Ukrainian culture visible for Europe and visible for the world, as well as provide the understanding that the Ukrainian culture was there together with our European partners and colleagues always 100 years ago, 200 and 300 years ago, and that it particularly was a standalone culture which was sufficient and existed long before.
Make Ukrainian heritage visible. I think that is a call to action that we can all respond to in our very own way. Thank you so much, Deputy Minister, for this conversation. I'm afraid that time has really run away with us, so we're going to have to try to land this conversation within the next couple of minutes. But maybe I would like to elucidate from you, or elicit from you, one or two key recommendations that you would give to your international partners, to other countries who might in the future, let's hope not, but experience stressors like you have been in Ukraine when it comes to digital cultural heritage and trying to strengthen yourself for what might come. What would be your top two recommendations for us?
Digitalize as much as possible and get people trained for the different situations.
Thank you very much. Straightforward, but I think clear takeaways for all of us. I must say that as a takeaway for me personally, the first words almost that you said in this session, where you talked about how working in the digital to protect cultural heritage is actually an act of defiance. It's preventing that cultural identities get erased, and it's actually a very active way to do that. We sometimes think of the digital as something quite conceptual, quite abstract, but this goes straight to the core of what a people is and what a culture is. So thank you for planting that seed also into the conversations that we will be continuing to have over the next day and a half. If I may, Ms. Bondar, I would like to thank you once again for joining us here today for this important conversation, indeed, on a key theme of this Europeana conference. And I definitely hope that we will cross paths again in the future, digitally or in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thanks for standing with us. And I guess that mutually we are creating the new model of cultural resilience.
Thanks so much. May I invite also the audience to continue the conversation either tomorrow in the session Heritage in Times of War, or by visiting us at the Europeana Network Association booth, where you can easily step into the working group should you wish to do so. I hope to meet you there, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Sofie Taes, and once again, thank you so much, Deputy Minister Bondar, for being with us. We've come to a break where I'm very happy that we had some amazing high-level presentations by people that are very busy. So having Chief Librarian Liz Jolly with us, Deputy Minister Bondar with us, Marta Cienkowska with us was an absolute treat. I hope you continue these discussions during your break. We're breaking for half an hour. Please come back here at 4 p.m. sharp, where we will continue this conversation, moving beyond this focus on threats and vulnerabilities to highlight opportunities for collaboration and building a more resilient future, as our Deputy Minister also said. See you at 4 p.m. We are continuing our policy forum today with a session specifically about going deeper into how we protect at-risk heritage and enhance data security. This will be a panel exploring digitization and ensuring the cybersecurity of digital heritage. So I will invite all of our panelists to the stage one by one. First, we have Rehana Schwinninger-Ladak, Deputy Rehana Schwinninger-Ladak, Deputy Director for Data, Digital for Culture and Education for the European Commission. We have Karol Cienkowski, he's Deputy Director for the National Institute of Cultural Heritage of Poland. We have Michał Kawiac, he's Head of Department of the Estonian Ministry for Culture. And last but not least, we have Gijs Meijer, he's Innovation and Ecosystems Manager for DEN in the Netherlands. This panel is moderated by none other than Valentine Charles, Data Services Director at Europeana Foundation. Let's give them all a warm hand. Welcome.
Thank you, Jolan. Welcome to what promises to be a timely and a vital discussion in this afternoon. So this panel is entitled Safeguarding Our Past, Securing Our Future, Digitization, Cybersecurity, and Resilience for Cultural Heritage. So as we have seen already since the beginning of this afternoon, the treasure of our shared past both face unprecedented opportunities. That's the part that is really exciting us, and evolving threat as well, as we have seen with the keynote from Liz Joly and the conversation with Deputy Minister Bondar. Digitization offers us incredible power to preserve, share, and reimagine our cultural heritage, making it accessible. Yet, this digital transformation comes with new challenge, especially the one of cybersecurity. How do we ensure that the very digital copies we create to protect our heritage are not themselves vulnerable? How do we build resilience against not only conflicts or natural disaster, but also cyber threats, automatic agents, what we call bots sometimes, or just services that are not using our data in an ethical way? And how do we strike this interesting balance, which is between security, but also accessibility, because the effort we invest in making everything, our infrastructure secure, should not come at the cost of accessibility and also our public mission, which is to provide access to data. So today, with my esteemed guest, we will dive into those questions. We will explore challenge and solution, explore how our collaboration can help us to build a more robust future for our cultural heritage assets. And we will be focusing on resilience. So really how we can find solution, how can we innovate in this area, and also collaborate, shared best practice. So I'm pleased to welcome our panel, and each of our panelists will bring a unique and crucial perspective on the topic of cybersecurity. So as Jolan has introduced our guests, so we have first Reana, who will shed light on the broader EU initiative, policy and capacity building effort in this space. Then we have Karol, who will share insights on protecting cultural heritage in armed conflict and the transformative role of digital technology in those difficult situations. We will then get Mikkel, who will offer us insight into Estonia policy initiative in cybersecurity, and especially the forward-thinking proposal for cross-border digital preservation. And lastly, we will get Reis, how is it? Reis? Huh? Guy, Reis. I want to, exercise my Dutch. Who will discuss robust cybersecurity strategies, how we can use linked data and decentralization to address those challenges, grounded in the practical experience of the Netherlands. So thank you for all having accepted our invitation. Thank you all for being here, and let's begin. So I would like to start with you, Reana, with the first question for this panel. So the EU has been very proactive in the space of cybersecurity. So could you give us an overview of how EU initiatives, projects, funding programs are supporting solutions for cultural heritage cybersecurity, and especially how those developments are impacting things like standardization, capacity building, and collaboration?
Yeah. So, Valentine, your question is focused on cybersecurity, but really I would like to zoom out a bit and to say that here, when we speak about preservation and protection, it is not only about cybersecurity. No, we really have to take into account all kinds of threats that really may affect cultural heritage. And I would really like to remind the recommendation, our policy, European policy framework that we came up in, that we published in 21. In 21, we really insisted and we emphasized the various levels of risks, that cultural heritage is facing. And the Undersecretary, she spoke about them. Huh? It's not only about cybercrime, it's also about the risks that is brought by natural hazard. When you had these devastating floods, last year we had them, in 21 we had horrible ones. We had a summer of really terrible floods all across the EU, where we had a huge damage done to not only to physical heritage, but also all the different information systems. So we have a number of risks which are brought by natural hazards, by fires, remember Notre Dame, cybersecurity. Now, the preparedness strategy that came out, just a few weeks ago, brings back this in the context of war, of geopolitical tensions. So it adds up to the layers of complexity and risks that we have to deal with. So what I want to say here is that we're not only looking at cybersecurity, we are looking at all kinds of security that may affect the physical asset as well as the digital one. So in our approach, this is always this double approach that we need to take into account in the way we are going to conceive the policy. Secondly, what we said also in the recommendation is that we need to have a holistic approach. And when you see the holistic approach is also in the call to action, right? I think we can't afford to be anymore in silos. When you look at something, you have to see it from the whole ecosystem, from all the kind of damage it can be done, from really what is that you want to digitize and preserve, until the very digital preservation strategies that you have to have. So it's really absolutely a holistic approach is absolutely fundamental. Now, in terms of cybersecurity funding opportunities, well, there are plenty of them, right? I mean, here, I don't think it's of interest to say to the audience that there is a lot of them. And the community here should really look out, because given the tensions that we have, given that we have a neighbor who's really not very amicable, there are a lot of opportunities for the community to be able to tap into those possibilities. And you have seen also, we are now at this stage, we are already looking at the next multi-annual framework. So the EU proceeds by multi-annual cycles. So the current one will come to an end in 27, and we are already thinking about the future. So what from 28 we will be looking at. So the work is now where we develop, we conceptualize how we are going to approach it. So obviously, cybersecurity, security, defense is very much at the heart of what we are going to be, putting on the table. And that will also give a lot of possibilities. Now, if I come one digit down, now in terms of the different levels that we have been looking at, and where we say, look, this is important in terms of how we are supporting the community, I think resilient infrastructure and resilient building blocks when you are reinforcing your infrastructure it's the basis, it's a foundation. And I think in our conversation with you regarding the resilience of the data space, that has been a very important part, and also, how can we now, even make stress tests? We will all have to make those, to see how this can be done. Then we were discussing together during the coffee, how can you also put in place very simple measures? When you want to build your resilience, you don't have to go, it's sometimes some very essential basic steps are needed. And maybe that's a question you are going to deal with, but I'll give you an example at the Commission. When it was already at the COVID step, because we had a lot of cybersecurity threats then. We were attacked all the time, already before the war. And we had very simple, procedures, like how from the top, from the president to the very bottom, how can you have this whole chain reach in 20 minutes? Via signal, So you put in place mechanisms, and then you make drills to see what is how much it takes you, from the top to the ground, because your email, the website, nothing is going to work, So resilience means a lot of things in different ways, and some of them can be implemented quickly. And the last thing, which is important, and where we have been putting a lot of emphasis, support, it's capacity building. It has been already said. I think it cannot be stressed enough. You can have all the funding possibilities, all the policy in relation to security, cybersecurity, but if the people do not know how to do it, if they don't have the skills, it's not going to work. So capacity building is key. And one of the big priorities that I have in my portfolio is digital skills. So I'm also responsible in my DG for supporting advanced digital skills across Europe. And what we see, that this is a critical gap everywhere, in every profession, in every vertical domain. We really have an acute lack of skilled staff who are able to then, to deploy the technology, to develop and deploy technologies. So not, replying directly to your answers, but just to say that it's really a multi-dimensional facet that at the Commission, be it in terms of policy or funding, we are trying really to support, from different angles.
Thank you, Anna. I think this idea of looking at this challenge in a more holistic way can help also defining priorities, because we all want to do diverse things, working on 3D, continuing to share more data. So I think indeed, I'm not isolating the problem of cybersecurity can help us also continuing to address other priorities we want to work on. And I think also one point you mentioned, which maybe could be one of the takeaway of today's session, if we start, making a little list of things we should do is this, establishing this response line, which is something that Liz Jolie also mentioned very much, like who should be contacted when there is a problem, and indeed how you ensure that those people can be contacted in sometimes a situation where all your digital mechanism have disappeared. So I think that could be the first point in our list. I'm going to move to you, Karol, who maybe has experience a bit more in a situation of response to an urgent situation. In your work, brings us directly to the front line of heritage at risk and cybersecurity. So when we talk about protecting cultural heritage in war, in conflict, which is the situation you had to face, how do digital and technology can support cultural heritage institution response, and how do digitization and documentation especially play a role in providing a response to a kind of a crisis moment?
Good evening, all. If we would like to talk about heritage in crisis, in face of war, we need to deeper understand the origin of my institute. From over 60 years, my institute has taken care of all evidence, of all the official data, of all heritage data made and which we had collected from since World War II. It was established in the shadow of the World War, and during this war we had lost more than 500,000 of work of art. It was absolutely a disaster. Massive amount of archives, massive amount of buildings, monuments was stolen or destroyed. Over 95% of Warsaw was completely smashed. If you step outside of this building, you can see the evidence of that catastrophe everywhere. So this has made us very, very sensitive for documentation and for preserving and for collecting each element of documentation about objects of architecture. Until today, my institute has been carefully documenting Polish heritage. Through the days of pencil, through the days of ink, analog photography, analog photogrammetry, to modern techniques of laser scanning, we are making a kind of time capsule for preserving the heritage. And for us, the most essential thing is to document our heritage as precise as possible in their existing state and in origin landscape. This expands our deeper knowledge, of course, about the object, but exactly it guarantees a basis for reconstruction in the event of disaster. To make a long story short, the digitization for us, particularly for us, is the highest level of documentation. So today's digital methods are amazing, particularly amazing. We can do the laser scanning with millimeter accuracy of architectural structure like a wooden church in less than 24 hours. This these techniques, these tools, these photogrammetric tools are common, are easy to use, are very popular, quite cheap. So it is a perfect digital record to make our cultural memory safer. The instruction for how to preserve the heritage was said during the UNESCO conference in 2005 in Faro, which said us that we need to involve the public, we need to involve the society to process to managing a heritage. And this is the key. We need to involve the public to processing of digitization. Why? Let us give people methodological standards. Let's give us tools. Let's give us. Let's provide repositories. Let's where they can put their data with free access for everyone. It will be the best thing to preserving the heritage, to involve the people. We must, this is particularly important if we need to, the standardization and the kind of processing is very important if we would like to use a machine learning in processing and managing the heritage. The data produced by many actors need to be standardized. This is the key. And we need to, as this environment, we need to make a kind of standardization, consistent and standardized methodological documents to make an acquisition of data defined, to processing methods very well, to be repeatable and to, in the terms of scope, in the terms of resolutions, formats, etc., etc. The collection, the large amount of data by many actors, it should be very standardized. This is the sentence which I would like to underline. The collection of large amount of data will require powerful machines, expanding storage, excellent cybersecurity. We need to remember that this kind of data is very sensitive. It was our lessons learned on Ukraine, where it was often the target of cultural war. These databases won't happen without extensive collaboration with the public. This is what you said. This will not happen without a wide-ranging campaign of standardization to produce standards and transfer methodologies to the people, to the society. And it won't be happen if we not train those peoples. And at last but not least, it won't happen without an understanding that this data is crucial for preserving the culture, for preserving our tradition and our European memory. That's it.
Yeah, thank you. I think, but maybe we will come back on this a bit later, but I think there is an interesting dichotomy here where on one hand, we want to have data, collecting data that is of quality. We want to do it in a standardized manner, but on the other hand, we need this to happen quickly. I think it's what Deputy Minister Bondar was urging us. You know, things need to move quickly, and therefore maybe involving the public can be a solution to this. However, if we involve the public, how can we still, you know, have data that is of quality and maybe still do that in a standardized manner without over complexifying everything? So maybe, I don't know if someone has a thought about this kind of tension we can see. Maybe you, Karol, or if anyone else in the panel wants
the last
to
sentence regarding Minister Bodnar. The first environment which respond during the war on Ukraine was citizens, private people. They were first in action. So we need to focus on them, in my opinion.
Yeah, so I think, maybe, I think there was someone mentioned this earlier, that maybe it's a change of mindset where now when we think about digital skills, we are thinking about it in a certain way, and maybe now we need to add another dimension, which is also preparedness, but preparedness also of society, civil society, and maybe delegate some skills so that in a situation of crisis, other can also be the first responder, let's say. So we have very much reflected with you, Karol, on the reaction, the response to crisis. All the lessons you have learned or everything we have heard today can help us to build anticipation, to build action so that we can anticipate and not only just respond. And this is leading me to you, Mikkel, where in Estonia, you have thought very much about developing a policy around cybersecurity, and you are very much developing your thoughts on how to already take some action so that you can anticipate crisis. So the question I have for you today is, can you tell us a bit more about those policy initiatives that are being put in place in Estonia? And I think I'm especially interested by this proposal that your country is putting on the table, which is to establish a cross-border preservation strategy, and maybe also cross-border repositories to preserve cultural heritage. So I would be curious to hear about this a bit more.
Thank you for inviting, and happy to be here. So yeah, we really started to feel the heat. So I guess this is why we got our act together and started thinking about it. I'm very proud of the working group, of the team who has worked on it since January, and its leader, my very dear colleague, Miss Christine Meos, who some of you might also know. So just to also take a look at the larger picture, it's 1 month and some days since the Iberian Peninsula blackout, as it's called in the Wikipedia. We have floods, we have natural disasters, we might have just system failures. We have all of you who represent memory institutions have experienced cyber attacks. So you know what's that about. Now imagine if we have like a mix of these together. That's a real bad place. Imagine some future technologies. It's said that quantum computing is going to render any cybersecurity that we presently have like basically meaningless. Imagine that we have like an AI sensor who attacks our whole digital heritage set and rewrites it ideologically. Like this is rewriting our history, our memory, and it's rewriting our identity. And if we don't have a backup, then it's very hard to go back. So this is our proposal to the European Commission. We are very glad that it has already had lots of support from the member states, but also like supporting words from the Commission itself. So what are we saying? We are saying that we actually need like a central mechanism to preserve cultural heritage data. We need it cross-border because, like in the blackest scenario, in the brainiest of days, we would need it to restore our republic after occupation, after our physical, like Warsaw was, our physical heritage has been destroyed, our documents, books have been censored, edited, destroyed. Like you rebuilt Warsaw, but I know that you lost a lot of documentation and books. You will never get them back because they are just burned. So we need it as last day kit, let's say, a backup kit. And our proposal is quite simple. It's based on our needs. So we're not trying to teach anybody, and we are not trying to say to the Commission either that you have to do exactly what we thought, but we determined based on our needs two basic needs. And these basic needs are basically high quality backup files of our digital heritage, which means that we still have all the stuff in place when something bad happens. And the second need that we understood that we have is restoring of a rather quick restoring of some information systems. I would, for example, say our museum information system, but it also can be archives or the national library systems. Basically, to put it in a layman's terms, to have the documentation to say that, it's our national treasure sold on eBay, like has happened so much in with the case of Ukraine. So we really need this kind of quick restoring of systems for the customs, for Interpol, for all kinds of other institutions that might take over the role of cultural heritage experts when things really go bad. And I'm really glad that the Preparedness Union strategy now includes also culture and heritage as vital to the preservation of the European way of living. And through this focus, I hope that basically we will start working on this cross-border preservation together to work out the best solutions for Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. So in the room as well, and you can also ask your questions. So I don't know this proposal that that Mikkel is bringing to the table. I don't know if some of you, does it spark, a reaction? Does, is it agreement or maybe concern? So I don't know if some of you would like to react. I think I see Tapani from Finland raising his hand.
Thank you for our panelists. Crucial topics indeed. I'm Tapani Sainio from Ministry of Education and Culture, Finland. I think the long-term preservation is highly important. And I think that the one step forward could be like mapping current practices in Europe. For example, in Finland, we have an operational long-term preservation solution, which is geographically decentralized, but inside Finland's border. So I believe there is potential for European cooperation in this sense. And another direction might be the European Open Science Cloud. They are currently having a sub-project, EOSC Eden, and they are currently having a survey where they are investigating how the scientific data is what kind of scientific data should be preserved for long term. So to my understanding, they are doing with the scientific data the same kind of things we could do with the heritage data. Thank you.
Thank you. So indeed, collaboration and also sharing best practice across Europe is probably the place to start. And today we have one panelist that is representing the experience of the Netherlands. So Reis, yeah, that's a nice segue to the question I have for you today, which is, can you tell us a bit more about those kind of checklists that the Netherlands has developed when it comes to best practices for cybersecurity, storage, preservation? I think you have more concrete actions you want to propose here.
Yes. What we see now in the Netherlands is that there is a big awareness that the subject is important. So it's very good that we all here come together and discuss this topic. But the thing is, what's the next step? And in the Netherlands, we have many cultural heritage organizations, a few big ones, but also very many small ones. So that was the problem we saw a few years ago. And what we did is, and it was mentioned some elements in the room, but we first said we have to have this cybersecurity hygiene. So we said we have to have these basic measurements in each organization, and that is your password, your backups, patch your software and things like that. But that's not enough, because what we see is that we have in the Netherlands the decentralized way of working. So we are also very vulnerable, fragile in the processes we have. So it's very important that you not only stay at your own organization, but also see how you work together with other organizations. And therefore, we managed to have this cybersecurity action plan, and it's useful for big, but also for small organizations. And I want to stress that. And the focus is to create a cybersecurity culture. And it's mentioned before, which has this holistic view, how you work together. So it's not only a thing of the IT department, it's responsibility of everyone in the organization. And in fact, it exists in 4 steps. The first one is that you see what are the most important processes in your organization, your crown jewels. It's a beautiful term. The second thing what you have to do is to have your risk assessment and see what you want to, what is the matter of the, what is the possibility that there, if something went wrong, what will happen, and what is the chance that will happen, and what is the impact. And the third step is that you go to the measurements, and then we have 3 phases. You have the prevention part, and it's mentioned also by the British Library. You have the crisis part, but also important, you have the recovery part. And with each of these three phases, you have the magical triangle which exists out of the organization, the human factor, and the tech. And they work closely together. And then the last step is that you see if you can monitor it. You did it for Europeana, so very happy to see that what's going on in the network, but also monitor how your employees are doing or how the network is working, training, and always evaluate. And it's a constant, it's a process which is constantly going on, never stops. Especially because, and it's also mentioned that the developments in IT, in AI are going so fast. It's a very dynamic subject. So you constantly have to be aware of this. And I think that's the main thing I would say. We have to work together to this cybersecurity culture where we are constantly aware of the threats and how we can deal with them. And the last thing is, and that was really wonderful that the British Library was here. And for two weeks ago, we had UNESCO Resilience Day in the Netherlands. And the director of the KB, the Dutch Library, said that also it's so important that we have an open culture where we not only share everything what we do great and how good we are, but also our failures or things where we made a mistake. And I think especially in the field of cybersecurity, we have this room full of trust, that we can trust each other and that we tell, okay, what can we learn from things that went wrong? So that's also an important fact.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know, since you were kind of listing some concrete step. I don't know if the other panelists you also have like some important steps you would have like to add to this list, or do you agree also with the approach as a? It's also fine.
I guess like great minds think alike. We didn't know of your steps, but we anyway had to invent them while we worked our proposal out. So we had to figure out what is important and why. So definitely for everybody else, there is your methodology, not for inventing the bike again.
I'm thinking about the crown jewels. On the front line in Poland, close to east border, we have maybe 2,000 or 3,000 of buildings. Each one is interesting, especially for their microcosmos. So how to pick the best? We need to involve a wider movement of documentation to have each one in digital world.
Somehow what you say reminds me the famous categories of the member state recommendation 2021. So I don't know, Rihanna, if it's also sounds familiar.
No, indeed, in the thought process, when we were reviewing the recommendation, obviously we had to put forward this urgency to digitize. But you can't digitize everything. You have to make choices, right? To really say, okay, this is the goalpost. And in the process of consultation, of thinking, for us, what was important is that we really put alarm bells to say, okay, these are the categories where really member states together, we move forward. And one of them is heritage at risk. So we, with member states in 22, 23, we had a number of conversations about how are they mapping heritage at risk? What is the definition of a heritage at risk? And what we saw is that there was not a single definition, and maybe that's okay, because each of you have different contexts in terms of risk approach. And this kind of mapping was not there. So there was one very useful project which was for CH, the colleagues who also helped us for helping out the the storage of the Ukrainian digital copies. And 4CH did a mapping. They did a digital mapping of heritage at risk. And it's still there, but I think somewhere we need to bring this back on the table, which is really member states. Let's look at what is now, what is that we're talking about, and what in terms of risk, what is a category? I mean, what are the assets where we really need to focus? You mentioned, those that are on the front line. For others, it may be, other where it's in seismic areas. So the risk is, so risk has many dimensions, in different countries. And some countries will have different approaches, but at the end of the day, it is about protecting. And how do we do it in a coordinated manner, so that when you need to do something, you don't have to start from scratch. You can build on the lessons of other member states.
So it looks like we need a mix of guidelines that can be applied across Europe, and also take into account the specificity of every member state, and it's also this aspect of sovereignty where indeed your choice is your choice, and what guides the choice is proper to every country.
I guess for that, everybody has to be involved, because basically, like, we are not in the skin of Portugal or Greece. Every country has its own particular set of issues, and I think the important thing is to find these common denominators also that would help everybody or most of us. If we can arrive to some of these together, then I think we're a great step forward already.
Yeah, thank you. So common denominators. In the room, I don't know if there are some. Oh, yeah, there are a lot of questions. I don't know also online, because I don't want to forget our also online audience. No, so let's focus on the room. So, don't know who was first.
Thank you. Just wanted to say how much I appreciate the seriousness that the panel is treating this subject, and I feel that we have in the physical world, we're much tougher, where you can't sell something if you're not doing it properly. And I think there should be recommendations, well, not recommendations, but rules that you can't carry on supplying a website which is vulnerable to attack. You need to have that level of scrutiny. And for us CHIs, I'm Tom Miles from the British Library, by the way, we can't do this on the cheap. You know, we need to do this properly, and it has to be done, and we won't be able to do that if it's not acknowledged that we have to sort of stick to these rules.
Thank you, Tom.
May I give a short response? I'll give another facet to it, because like inside countries, there are different institutions with different capabilities, different financing. At the same time, like the cultural heritage, they might be storing, might be invaluable, notwithstanding the fact that they're very, very poorly funded and therefore have all the other priorities than cybersecurity. So this is also why we felt that some kind of more unified strategy is necessary, not to leave some institutions who hold very dear things behind just because of something or other.
Thank you. We'll take a last question in the audience, and then we will have to wrap up.
Okay, Darek Paradowski, National Library of Poland. First, a short tribute to the British Library, because how just said, it's important to speak also about failures. And thanks to this, that you spoke about your ransom attack publicly and lessons learned, this year on our conference of long-time preservation, Slovak Republic National Library representative dared to speak about their attack, their vulnerability, as they are completely smashed by the attack. And it took a time for him to dare speak about it, but it was a great argument of British Library that spoke about it openly. So it's encouraging people to do it. And it's the best lesson. And the question, last year on the same conference, I asked panelists, before we knew that this initiative of European data space from Estonia, yes, is there a possibility of organizing a peer-to-peer storage for having something abroad, at least crucial, the crown jewelries abroad, in case everybody knows what? And the conclusion was that technically this is not a problem, but there might be a problem from the copyright law. Because if this is public domain, there's no problem. Everybody is sharing it. But for copyrighted material, it is not allowed for some countries to keep the data outside the border. So the question is there any idea or the work or task group to overcome this problem? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe because I need to conclude, so maybe I can ask you all in 1 minute to maybe summarize what you think are the main takeaway, or maybe how you would like to see this conversation continuing, since it seems that there is a lot of idea, and maybe we spark something in having this open and honest conversation around this topic that sometimes it's difficult to talk about it. I mean, Liz Joly mentioned the word shame, and I think it's what you were reflecting on as well. So in 1 minute, yeah, how you would like to continue?
No, I really relate to what you say, because last year or a year and a half ago, when we were, building the Twin It campaign, and you have a heritage at risk, and in the many conversations with member states, some of the unofficial, feedback was, but we can't submit something at risk, because it would mean we acknowledge that something is at risk, and nothing is at risk. No, let's have, we are there to support each other and to help. So as you say, for me, really mindset. But the mindset has to come from the top, because, and it comes from the top, which means at all levels. It comes from the ministries, it comes from the leadership of the museums, of the CHIs, all the way down. And that's where we'll be able to shift the lines, because no matter how secure your information system is, if you don't have the mindsets and people's capabilities, we won't be able to restore, respond, whatever. So I think that's really at the heart of this issue.
Yeah, Karol, in a very succinct way.
Mindset, yes, but constant and ever increasing funds in infrastructure. This is main thing. And second one, the standardization of data. This is crucial for common storage.
Michael?
Yeah, I would like to say that when there is already trouble, then it is most probably like too late, at least for something. So it's good to have foresight and to prepare beforehand. I would liken it to an umbrella. Some days you take the umbrella with you and it doesn't rain. So it has actually protected you from rain. The second thing I would like to say that we cannot actually protect our common heritage without this holistic strategy that Rihanna was talking about. So I'm really, really glad that we are in the preparedness union strategy, and we have other fields cooperating with us. And the third point I would like to make, which I already said, that we really believe that everybody's contribution to going forward is super important. So we hope to work on cultural heritage resilience in a cooperative and with you all, with all the experts and with all different adjoining fields. So thank you.
Thank you. And Rees?
Yeah, that's always difficult to be the last one. But the only thing I would like to stress is that the problem is so urgent. So Europe is a wonderful concept, but I think that we really, really need to go into action. And yeah, I'm always willing to help. And I think there are many other parties who would like to help to bring this subject forward and make it a cyber safer Europe. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all. Together we can thank our panelists for this very interesting discussion. So that's the last part for me. So everything you have heard, I mean, of course, this afternoon and more specifically in this panel is going to be feeding the call to actions that we are together developing. So there was a first draft that was made to inform this discussion and help us to prepare with this program. And now we can take all the lesson learned, all those steps you have mentioned, all those call to action back into this document so that together, yeah, we can start continuing the discussion and develop some action. So thank you all, and I will pass the final word to our Master of Ceremony, Jolan.
Thank you so much, Valentine Charles, for leading this really insightful panel. Yes. With very insightful discussions. Thank you as well for the people who asked questions in the room. I have written down a few key points, a few key takeaways for today that might make it into the call to action. It's impossible for me to envelop all of the points that were made during this day, but I do want to bring you back to the very start. It feels like ages ago now, where Harry Verwayen, Karol Zgódka, Marta Cienkowska opened up our policy forum and mentioned that the data space for cultural heritage is currently well positioned to be at the forefront of preserving and securing digital cultural heritage. Initiatives like Twin8 Part 2, which is now on screen, can be important building blocks for a more coherent and collaborative cultural heritage sector. That does mean that we need to focus, as Marta Cienkowska nicely said, on the care that we have and that we want to give as cultural heritage professionals to our cultural heritage preservation. Valentina and Corinne continued on, mentioning, for instance, that our cultural commons actually make it for a very transparent, low barrier way to reuse cultural heritage. But this means that if we want to ensure security, there's also a broad attack space, which Corinne put very well, that we also need a large set of measures for. This reuse of the cultural commons can also be a possible target for disinformation and misinformation campaigns. And here too, we will need capacity building and awareness raising. Valentine showed how real-time monitoring of our systems is very complex. It's hard to see what is a bad actor, what is a good actor. We can't really set a clear threshold, but we need to have deep intelligence of our users to understand what access might be malicious and what isn't. The Chief Librarian, Liz Jolly, highlighted that we need to have plans for when everything, absolutely everything, fails. We need to connect with our key stakeholders and have clear lines of communication from the top all the way to the bottom, as Rehana also mentioned later on. We need to keep in mind the regulations and the limitations that might be in place when you're dealing with things like a crime scene, when we need to do evidence collection. And she also mentioned that we need to think about caring for our users, for how and what we can communicate with them. Then we moved on to Deputy Minister Anastasia Bondar in a conversation with Sofie Taes. Ms. Bondar said that culture is not a luxury in times of crisis, but a necessity for resilience. Also, civil society is often one of the first responders when it comes to crisis. Karol also talked about this. And this civil society is shown to be very resilient and very adaptive. And something that we need to do as a cultural heritage sector is to continuously adapt to changing situations, changing seasons, changing attacks. Physical aid is crucial in type of crisis. And Bondar closed by saying that we need to digitize as much as possible, and we need to provide training to create these opportunities for capacity building where it is most needed. We ended, it's really a quick go through our policy forum with our lovely panel, where we heard about the need to build resilience, but also need to learn how to validate that resilience. How do we stress test all of this? We need to drill our communication lines to make sure that in 20 minutes, everyone knows what is going on. These response lines are crucial. Resilience can also mean a lot of different things to different people, but some of them can be implemented quickly and securely. And you can have all of the resources and funding in the world. It is nothing without this capacity building. We also need mechanisms to preserve our cultural heritage data in a transnational way, in a system that we have high quality backup files, and we can quickly restore some information systems as quickly as possible. Standards in preservation are crucial as well, as Mr. Cienkowska told us. And lastly, everybody has to be involved in decision making. When it comes to creating guidelines and systems, for sure. Every member state, every region, every institution has their own definition of what they see as a crisis, of what is a priority for them. But we can try and find shared values, common ground, and hopefully this is something that within the call to action, we can try and find as well. So I would warmly invite you to take a look at this call to action once it is published and contribute to it if possible. This also means that we are at the end of our policy forum today. It went by much quicker than I thought. Actually, I feel like I want some more, but maybe that's just me. I do want to thank on behalf of the Europeana initiative our partners. Special thanks to Karol Zgódka, Katarzyna Waletko, Karol Cienkowski, Aleksandra Porkozelska, Joanna Kroll, Paweł Rudzki, and Monika Bądźa-Tomaszewska. We also have a bunch of other stakeholders. I cannot mention everyone, but a huge thank you to all of you as well, our participants. You really made sure that there was lively discussion, there were great questions and answers. You brought a really great energy to today. To the rest of our speakers and our presenters, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, for being honest and also admitting mistakes when needed. And of course, I cannot forget our Europeana initiative and foundation, my colleagues, people that were involved in the policy forum, in particular, Hina, Valentine, Lorena, Shadi, and more.
And also let me thank our Master of Ceremony, Jolan, who did an excellent job.
Thank you so much. I was a bit scared when you stood up. What's happening? Thank you. So a final reminder before I say goodbye, we'll see you in the auditorium at 5, so 5:15 for our last panel of the day. And after that, we will be closing up today. So keep an eye on this call to action. Thank you so much for joining the policy forum, and we'll see you in the auditorium at 5:15.